Another organization in our Catholic Church who, of course, does a great job in bringing the faith to bear in our community. That is the Knights of Columbus. They're a sponsor of this event, and we're going to take a video looking at a cool initiative they have here in the state of Minnesota.
So we're handing out 600 coats and 250 pairs of snow pants within the Aiken County area here.
The Leave No Neighbor Behind is such a great initiative. I mean, what better part of the community to support than our children?
We're really excited. This is our second year of receiving such a wonderful gift for our families. The majority of our students are Native American, so it's nice to have an organization like the Knights to reach out to us. And it's such a nice gift for our kids because we're outside. That's what kids do. They love that.
Because of the COVID, a lot of people are out of work, and so, you know, they perhaps can't afford a new coat for the kids, and so we're so happy to be there to be able to provide it. You know. And of course, with this cold weather coming on, it's good timing.
There are families that are super in need. I can imagine as a parent knowing that your kid came home with something nice, attractive, and warm is just such a relief.
Kids are our future. We hear that all the time. And that's what it's all about, is seeing the smile on that kid's face and the pride. I just think it's important that we step forward and do something for our community. It's by giving that we receive. The Knights of Columbus was founded by Father McGivney. He did the exact same thing.
There are good people that do really terrific, wonderful things, and that we are the recipients of that. I can't say enough. I can't say enough how grateful we are.
Thanks, Knight.
It is just fantastic to see our own Knights here in Minnesota featured in this video. A close-up view of what the many good works that your organization does in the community. You saw his face in the video, but here now at Catholics at the Capitol, we have David Mwetmuff, the Minnesota State Deputy for the Knights of Columbus, and we're also joined by Lloyd Seibart, who is the General Agent for the Knights of Columbus and handles the insurance program. So, David, what stands out to you in that video when you see the coat drive?
It was just delightful. It's one of our big programs, of course, is the Coats for Kids. In fact, it doesn't really come out in that video, but we actually, in that week, we distributed over $62,000 worth of coats. Of course, it happened to be a very cold week as well, that week in October.
They needed those coats.
It really did, yeah. Yes, it was opportune, really. And so all over the state, basically, we were distributing coats. And we do it every year, and we find that there is always a need. There's always a need for the coats.
So tell me some of the other ways the Knights serve the community across the state.
Well, of course, one of our big programs is the ultrasound program. We are very much a pro-life organization, of course, and over the last 10 years, we've actually distributed, we have funded and donated over 44 ultrasound machines in the last 10 years, and we're just so delighted that we are saving lives every day. Every day these ultrasound machines are just showing young women that this is really a baby in there, and that really makes a big difference. So that's one of our big programs too.
That's incredible and so important. And of course, then also you provide insurance for across, I mean, really, truly worldwide through your full membership. But here in Minnesota, right?
We were founded as an insurance organization for the Irish immigrants in 1882. So
right from the beginning, Lloyd, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, absolutely. We were founded as a benefit society by Father McGivney. And back then, Irish Catholics were heavily discriminated against. They had the worst jobs, the most dangerous jobs, and they died on the job quite a bit, leaving the family literally destitute. And so that actually happened to Father McGivney's family. His father died in the foundry when he was in the seminary. And so he had to take care of his 7 brothers and sisters and his mother. And what he did when he became a priest is he wanted to protect those families. So I found out that insurance would have been in the best way. And there was 4 insurance companies back then. All of them had the same question on their application. What is your religious affiliation? He said, Catholic, you ain't getting any insurance. And so he decided to form the Knights of Columbus as a benefit society. And if someone died back then, they would get $1,000 for the family. Doesn't sound like much, but that was 4 years' income for them back then. And so from there, we've grown to where we are today. We're a Fortune 1000 company. We're over $118 billion in insurance in force, and we have the highest possible security ratings from Standard & Poor's. So we're up there.
Wow, that's incredible.
And we were also voted one of the most ethical companies by Ethisphere, which is an organization that does that kind of thing.
What an honor to have that recognized.
Absolutely.
And so today, the Knights are a sponsor for Catholics at the Capitol. So why is it important for you to bring, to be part of this and to bring your values to Catholics at the Capitol as well?
Yes, we've always supported MCC and Jason whenever we can. We get involved in the different programs that they do. It's important for us to show our voice, to show we have 40,000 members in the state of Minnesota, so we want those members to have a voice and to show in support of MCC and when they're dealing with the political side of things, which the Knights tend not to do. We tend to avoid the political side, and so it's good to add our voice to that of MCC.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, Lloyd, for being here. So, as you mentioned, the fascinating work that the Knights began more than 100 years ago, and it was the brainchild, as you mentioned, of Father McGivney, who was just beatified last year, a Connecticut priest.
Very exciting.
Yeah, what an honor for the Knights to see that. And he was, as you mentioned, motivated by the plight of newly arrived Catholic immigrants to the United States. So in our next video, recently retired Supreme Knight Carl Anderson is going to and others are going to describe the birth of the Knights of Columbus, which is now the world's largest family fraternal and service organization. So let's take a look.
In 19th century America, Catholic immigrants began arriving in droves. They were often not welcomed into American society.
One of the perennial questions in the 19th century was concerning whether the immigrants coming to America from Catholic countries could be faithful Catholics and at the same time loyal Americans. That sparks a conflict, a struggle, if you will, that's going to last much of the 19th century.
Catholics were often ostracized in communities across the United States. Their churches were burned or graffitied. You really are dealing with a visceral anti-Catholicism.
But even without this prejudice and fear from the Protestant majority, the Catholic immigrant population was already in a state of crisis.
They're working in the most difficult jobs, the most dangerous jobs. People get tuberculosis, people have industrial accidents, people have heart attacks, they drop dead. So this is long before unions. This is long before workers' compensation. This is long before any kind of safety net exists.
Catholics were also barred membership in many mutual benefit societies, meaning husbands and fathers had no means of protecting their family in the event of an untimely death. Many widows found themselves and their children doomed to destitution and ruin.
If you could not support your children, the law, the probate court would come in and take your children and farm them out. They would literally take children away.
It is exactly this dismal situation that prompted a young priest into action. Venerable servant of God, Father Michael McGivney was the assistant pastor at St. Mary's Church in New Haven, Connecticut. He was deeply concerned about the pressures tearing apart Catholic immigrant families. On October 2nd, 1881, he called a meeting of local Catholic men in the basement of his church. He shared with them his vision of a Catholic fraternal group bound by the spiritual principles of charity and unity.
Christopher Columbus is seen in the 19th century as in part an evangelizer. He brought not only the European settlements, but he brought the gospel. He brought the Catholic faith. Also, the term knights focused on what we would call today the knightly virtues, being there to defend the weak, helping those in need, defending the Catholic Church.
The Knights of Columbus from its very first was an effort to make sure that women and children who became widows and orphans did not, in addition, have to suffer becoming destitute.
And the Knights became chief defenders of Catholics in that time period. So all these newly arrived immigrants saw the Knights as protection against prejudice. And that was a very, very powerful lure.
The popularity of the Knights soon grew internationally. Before the turn of the century, the Knights had expanded into Canada, establishing the first council in Montreal. James Guerin, the city's former mayor, served as the first Grand Knight.
Well, the Knights came to Canada in 1897 in Montreal, and since then we have expanded throughout the country in every 10 provinces. There is a Canadian connection to Father McGivney because he studied in Saint-Hyacinthe, Quebec. There was a seminary there, and he studied there for a year. Father McGivney's presence in Canada could be related to years after, and I'm sure that helped in the growth of the order in Canada.
Within 25 years of the founding, we had councils in every single state of the Union and nearly all of the provinces of Canada, and had councils as well in Mexico and in the Philippines.
As the Knights spread around the world, they continued to defend the role of Catholics in American public life. In 1904, the Knights donated $50,000 to establish a chair in history at the Catholic University of America. It was the first of many times when the Knights would respond to the needs of the Church. But the Knights of Columbus were just as willing to respond to the needs of their country. The creation of the fourth degree made that clear.
So the fourth degree becomes the patriotic aspect of the Knights of Columbus. The sword becomes very important in the regalia of the Knights of Columbus as the symbol of the willingness of the knight to defend his community, defend his church, defend those who are in need.
The Knights of Columbus lobbied Congress to memorialize Columbus in Washington, D.C. The summer of 1912, there was a huge dedication of it. President Taft was there, the Supreme Court, members of Congress, and 20,000 Knights paraded through Washington. And it was a huge affirmation of their arrival in America.
What a compelling story of the Knights' origins, and also a reminder of our nation's history. And truly, we are a nation of immigrants. And here we are in the cathedral's Founders Chapel, which also honors the men and women families who helped to fund this cathedral, many of whom were immigrants. And also, I'm sure the builders of this cathedral also were immigrants at that time.
Absolutely, and the story continues today. The church continues to be a welcoming voice, a welcoming hand for immigrants who come to our country today. And immigration is obviously, it's a complicated, it's a nuanced issue, but I think the message that the church continues to bring to the public square is that behind all the facts and the figures that we hear about quotas and economic impact and all these things are real people, right? Real people, real families made in the image and likeness of God, and that's kind of the constant reminder. So nations have a duty and a right to regulate their borders and their system of immigration, but the church always reminds us that people have a right to migrate, to escape poverty, to escape violence, and to seek a better life. So that's the church's emphasis on this issue.
And it's something that we're going to hear more about today, also from Archbishop Gomez, who himself is an immigrant from Mexico. And he became a citizen just in 1995. And in 2013, he published a book, Immigration and the Next America, which connects immigration to the values that Catholics hold dear.
Absolutely. And so it's obviously an issue that we talk about on the federal level, and obviously implications on our borders as well. And here in Minnesota, this is an important issue, immigration, because there are thousands of our brothers and sisters here who live in our country, or our state even, are part of our communities, send their kids to our schools, and might be undocumented immigrants. So actually, we're going to hear later today on an important issue, provisional driver's license. But right now, we have a chance to talk to our speaker later on today, Alejandra Chavez Rivas, a good friend of mine. Alejandra, good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, great. And so we're going to hear your fuller story later today. But Alejandra, I know you well. I know you're not someone to draw attention to yourself unnecessarily. So why is it so important for you to be here today and to speak on this issue?
I think growing up, immigrating to the U.S., I've always had to advocate for my parents and for my aunts and uncles. I've had to just assist them with translating everything. And so I just got this sense of all right, well, I'm speaking 2 languages and I'm going to eventually graduate. I'm going to have to do something. And also nobody can tell my story but myself. And that's exactly.
Awesome. Well, it's a very compelling story, so we look forward to hearing that this afternoon. Thank you so much, Alejandra.